things about.
Welcome to Your Future is Now, hosted by Jim Grant and Bill Heinrich. Their show is dedicated to sharing information in business, health, and obstacles we face in our everyday lives. Jim is also the TV host of Messages of Inspiration and Hope on E360 TV. Bill is the author of 7 Levels of Truth and is a master in the world of getting clarity in your mind to clear out the cobwebs and remove mental barriers that hold you back. Each week, they will interview an exciting guest. We're so glad you've tuned in. Be sure to share the show. And now, here's Jim.
And welcome to the show, ladies and gentlemen. Your Future is Now is proudly sponsored by the good guys at the 6minutewebinar.com. And I'm honored to have Mr. Bill Heinrich with us today. Mr. Bill Heinrich, he is the honorary host here on the TogaNet radio system. And Mr. Bill, as you heard in the introduction, he is the author of the 7 Levels of Truth. You can find that book on Amazon. He is also fondly known around the world as the Dean of the 6-Minute Webinar. And ladies and gentlemen, let me humbly say we've talked a lot about the 6-Minute Webinar here on the show. And the 6-Minute Webinar, it's got its own legs because we just had a couple of people approach us about wanting to put on not 1, but 2 summits with the 6-Minute Webinar. Mr. Bill, I tell you right now, that really floored us, didn't it, brother?
Yeah, actually, it's 3.
3? Ladies and gentlemen, I can't count, so go. I'll take Bill's word for it.
You know, the fascinating thing, the 6-minute webinar is quite amazing, and people say, why would I want a 6-minute webinar? Well, first of all, we have an app built into the 6-minute webinar. You answer 40 questions. Our app writes your script for you, and it gives you a perfect 6-minute talk addressed to your perfect client. And that in and of itself is really nice, but that's not the most important thing, Jim. There's so much clarity that you bring into your business, how you really serve others, that it makes such a huge difference. And this is why we were invited. This summit is actually being based out of India, and it's going to be a global summit.
Right.
Day 1 is for entrepreneurs. Day 2 is going to be for educators, and day 3 is going to be for corporate teams. And the reason they want us to do it is the clarity issue. And so the name of the summit is Clarity and Communication. It's all about clarity and communication. And that's what the framework of the 6-minute webinar does for you, is it allows you to really dial down and get tremendous clarity in your communication to others about who you are, what you represent, what you do, what outcome you're looking for. It's all done in a very scientifically proven way that was developed by Don McGrath and myself. It has 12 critical points in it. It's an amazing process to go through. In fact, tomorrow, once a month, we do a 6-minute webinar boot camp, and we'll be doing that tomorrow, starting at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time until 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. If anybody has an interest in that, they can go to the 6, not the number, but SIXminutewebinar.com, and you can sign up for the boot camp there. It's really an incredible process.
It
Not
really
only changes how you do business, it really changes how you look at life.
You bet. And it really works more than just what Bill described there, because when I was on that summit in India back in April, I only had 15 minutes to talk. So I wanted to make sure I got a crystal clear message from the alpha to the omega, to the audience. So I took the 6-minute webinar and I used it to craft my 15-minute talk. And it worked beautiful. I just added a little bit more to the 3 key points I wanted to make. And, they were really impressed, and that opened a door for further communication about the 6-minute webinar. So if you're a speaker, or if you're an author, or if you got to give just a presentation and you don't want to, you want to walk up there with confidence, the 6-minute webinar is for you. That's the bottom line, isn't it, Bill?
Well, let me give you my perspective on it.
Okay.
Your talk was so much better than anyone else's to give a 15-minute talk with as much clear information so powerfully that they wanted to know after how you wrote a talk that was that powerful. And when you showed them, they said, we have to spread this around the world because this is going to be a global summit. That's how this actually came about.
Yeah.
That's the difference with the 6-minute webinar.
Yeah. That was the first summit, and these people says, "Hey, we want to do a second summit." So we're just summiting away here, you might say. And today our guest is Caleb Coy. Middle name is Kidd Coy. And I'll tell you right now, he's going to be talking to us, on his subject about, how to become the hero of your legacy. And I want to hear a lot about what he's got to say. How about you, Bill?
I do too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, Caleb, welcome to the show there, Bill. Let him take it over.
Yeah, go ahead, Caleb, and start telling us how to become the hero of your legacy.
Well, gentlemen, first of all, thank you so much for the invitation and the opportunity to come on your program. Mm-hmm. And congratulations to your continued success, 6 million downloads. It's pretty epic, as well as all the momentum and exposure the 6-minute webinar is getting. Just huge congratulations to you. And thank you for how you are continuing to show up and serve humanity powerfully. I can tell already that I'm in very good company. So I deeply appreciate that.
Well, thank you, sir. We're glad that you're here. And if you just let the folks know a little bit about you, how did you get into the work that you're doing? What's a little bit about your background, if you'd be kind enough to share that with us, sir?
I would be honored to. Thank you. Well, I grew up a preacher's kid in a faith-based home. And when I became a teenager, it was full-blown rebellion with drugs and rock and roll, and found myself on the precipice of life and death at 17 years old due to a meth overdose. And so needless to say, there was divine intervention there, and I knew I was given a second chance to serve others. I should not be here today, so I will be forever and eternally grateful for that opportunity. And I knew it was to begin serving others, and so I really started out my journey just doing what I could to give back. And I spent a lot of years working with various nonprofit organizations and outreaches, doing everything from life coaching and helping people struggling with addiction to feeding 400 or 500 homeless in downtown and underground Atlanta every month, and keynote speaking across campuses and universities of our great nation. And so even though legacy had been initiated in the forefront of my mind, it was many years in my journey before I really began to piece together, if you will, the importance of it really is a puzzle, because legacy for me is so much more than just our money or, what we accumulate in life, material possessions. It's in the way we live. It's in the way we give. It's how we serve those we love. And so I'm grateful for the foundation of being able to serve and give back before I began my entrepreneurial journey. And needless to say, I began to see the gaps, not only in, faith-based and philanthropic communities, but across the board, that there was such a need for proper financial education and training that they just don't teach you in the public education system, right?
Yeah.
They just don't. You're not going to find it there.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing that I like about, you telling your story and being open and honest about that is because your background, your journey that you traveled down, by sharing your story, you're going to be able to reach out and touch others that automatically connect with you, because they can say, hey, I was that guy too, or I am that guy. And, that's just really amazing, because everybody has a story in them. Everybody has their own legacy, don't they, Caleb?
They absolutely do. They absolutely do. And again, I just love what you guys are doing, because everyone has a story. And a lot of people don't know how to tell that story. And that story is waiting to be heard by somebody out there that could transform the life trajectory of their path, of their endeavors. And so, yeah, I'm all about telling my story in order to, present people with, hey, I'm just an everyday average guy like you, who's probably, been where you are in a lot of ways. And I'm just here to show you that this can be done. We can find success. We can find abundance. I grew up in a poverty mindset mentality home, and it took me well over 3 decades to just break out of that stinking thinking and start to realize how much abundance was everywhere around us and how much potential there was to operate in that place so that we could better serve others.
So describe that a little bit more for me, Caleb, about a poverty mindset home. What was that like? What were you hearing? What was being said?
That's a great question, Bill. And we can all think of those phrases that we grew up with. And for me, it was, money doesn't grow on trees. How are you going to be able to afford that, Caleb? We're just waiting for our ship to come in. And, three decades later, I began to realize that ship's not coming. You have the potential and the opportunity to go build your own ship and let it take you wherever you want it to go. That's the difference right there. So, living where you're just scraping by and lack. And I think a lot of that had to do with, the upbringing that if you're going to be a humble person, you need to be broke, busted, and disgusted. So that's just not the reality.
Yeah, you're exactly right, because a lot of people feel that, if they are getting a lot of money or go after money, that they're automatically going the wrong way in life. And that's not true. I like what Bill, with his book, The 7 Levels of Truth, it's all about get out of the physical. We were born into the wild world of survival. Get into the world of, the universe. Tap into the universe, because once you do that, you're filled with love, and then the doors open for you. And, the little hinges always open big doors. We got about 15 seconds left before we go to tunes, ladies and gentlemen. But Bill and I will be back with Caleb after these brief commercial messages. Just stay with us, and we're so glad that you've tuned in. And welcome back to the show, ladies and gentlemen. Our guest today is Caleb Kidd Coy. He's going to continue sharing his information with us. And my goodness gracious, when he talks about your legacy and the things we've covered so far, I can't wait to see what else we're going to be covering on this segment and the rest of the show. But our show is proudly brought to you by the good guys at the 6minutewebinar.com. And Mr. Bill, I believe you said earlier that we've got a webinar coming up tomorrow. Is that correct, sir?
Our boot camp is tomorrow.
Boot camp.
It's once a month we do a 3-hour boot camp where you actually all the people that sign up, we take you through the whole process. And again, all you have to do is answer 40 questions and hit submit, and your script comes out. So by the end of the 3-hour boot camp, not only do you have your script written, you have total clarity on the answers, because you're working with the people that actually created the 6-minute webinar, Don McGrath and myself. And I don't know, we're pretty good at that, Jim.
Yes, sir.
They're really blown away after we work with them.
Well, this much I'll tell you, ladies and gentlemen. The first time they said they're going to put on a 3-hour workshop, and I'm thinking, okay, there's not going to be any bio breaks or anything like that. No smoke breaks, no breaks to go get a cup of coffee or whatever. And I'll tell you right now, nobody left. And the biggest majority of them, they wanted to stay and they wanted more. Yeah. We've had 3 ladies on that first one. I remember this. And they said, no. We got some more questions. We want to know more. And that just goes to show you that you cannot hold people's attention for 3 hours with a bunch of yakety sacks, puffed up nonsense. You got to have some meat and potatoes, and they got to see the dessert right around the corner. And that's exactly what that 6-minute webinar did. I mean, it just blew them away. They never saw anything like it before, had they?
Yeah, it's really a tremendous experience. And if you want to know more, you can go to our website, 6minutewebinar.com. But it can be used if you're in business. Doing a 6-minute webinar really is mandatory. You will learn how to get your message out to your perfect client. And that's all, the only person you ever want to speak to is your perfect client. The reason we get into problems, like one fella said, he sent us an email and said, that was amazing. He said, I had too many different programs for too many different people. And because of that, he was struggling, and you just can't do that. But I want to get back to Caleb here. And
yes, sir.
We were talking about how we've been raised, and through judgment, shame, blame, and guilt, and all of those things. And how did you go from that, Caleb, into helping people create legacies?
That's a great question, Bill. And when you stare death in the face, there's a bit of an epiphany that takes place, an awakening, if you will, to realize how fragile we are as human beings. We tend to run from our mortality at times, and being in the industry that I'm in, I deal with the two most sensitive topics in people's lives, their money and their mortality. And so it gave me the opportunity to confront mortality early on, because I'm sure you can imagine I have a number of estate planning and wealth services clients that, still struggle with the fear of death, still struggle with, what might happen to them. And so fear tends to create procrastination, and procrastination can be a dangerous thing for anyone. And so I realized that, I was given the opportunity, I was given a second chance to serve others. So I had to face my fears. I had to face the problems, not just in my near-death experience, but when I found myself at the threshold of a terrible divorce situation many years ago as well, with a very young child at the time. And so, we can either run from our problems or we seek out a solution. And so, we're all very aware that our world's got plenty of problems. And the more that we focus on that, the more that fear and panic and worry, the uncertainty of tomorrow can overtake us. So if we choose to look for the good in everyone and everything, to focus on the positive and to be a solution creator instead of a problem maker, we can really do unprecedented things in our world. And so, gentlemen, that's what my focus has been all these years later. And, as part of this journey, bringing me to where I am today. In the past year and a half, 2 years of my life have been absolutely extraordinary, but it has been a result of diligence, perseverance, and just the commitment that no matter how many times I was knocked down, that I would choose to get back up again and keep going. And that kind of resilience is what humanity needs to be equipped with today. We need more people who have what I like to call that rhino hide, that thick skin, that fortitude that says, you know what, no matter how hard it gets, we're going to lock arms, we're going to rise up, and together we are truly better.
What's amazing in my life is that for many years, ladies and gentlemen, I had a PhD in how to push a chain uphill. Because if there was a right way, a wrong way, and a hard way, I normally just by nature would pick the hard way. And I'm being honest about that. I mean, and that was just the way I was wired. And then slowly, and I'm being very open and honest about this, I'm very sincere about this when I say this, as I went down life's journey, my pathway there, I bumped into Bill Heinrich and Don McGrath, and we slowly just, became great friends. And then when Bill gave me his book, The 7 Levels of Truth, I started reading that, and I just started, seeing things in a different way. My point being is this: if you've been hitting your head against a brick wall, stop it, okay? You don't have to, because what you do, you let go of the physical. And Bill can explain this much better than I can, but just say, hey, I'm just going to let it go. Where I'm at right now is the perfect place for me, but this is my starting point from going to go forward. And you learn how to love yourself first, learn how to love to serve others, have a labor of love to serve others. And guess what? Those big doors, the little hinges on them just swing open to you, and things come to you for a change. I'm going like, wow, Here I've been pushing a chain uphill, getting up. When I had my manufacturing business, I got up early and I worked late and I worked on weekends, all for the same amount of money. I'm telling the truth there. But I became a slave to it because I didn't know any better. And ladies and gentlemen, I know a lot of people that their business is their own, it's their own salt mine. They go there, they work, they do the same thing over and over and over. And, with the 6-minute webinar, I'm not trying to plug it so much, but I'm just trying to share some truth with you. It takes all of those distractions out of the way. You get right down to the meat and potatoes of who you are, what you do, and how you can serve others. And that is when you go from the rocky road to the paved sidewalk. And Mr. Bill, I just wanted to say that for you, say that to you here publicly on the radio and say thank you, brother. Thank you for being my friend. Thank you for just being Mr. Bill. You know what I mean?
Well, I thank you. And it's nice to finally just be me and not be who everybody else, not be who I think everybody else wants me to be. Isn't that right, Caleb?
Absolutely. 100% there.
You were talking about how we're all brought up, and Jim spoke about the physical and the non-physical, and I don't want to get into that too much, but what I do want to mention is the number one issue that where we create problems, the number one thing is through measurement. It's measuring ourselves against others, measuring a win or a loss, right, Caleb? It's all about measurement, and measurement is really a simpler word, but it's the same thing. This is where judgment comes from. Yeah. And the defensiveness and fear comes from people wanting to protect their way of life for fear they may be wrong.
Yeah, when we go down that path, boy, it can be so detrimental to our well-being, comparing ourselves, measuring ourselves. And it presents a unique truth, Bill, and that is the fact that so many people today are still struggling with their identity. Who am I? We live in a modern social media digital age where there is so much mask wearing going on. There is so much appearances that do not reflect the true reality. And it was probably one of the reasons I was so successful as a life coach in the entertainment industry is because I just gave it to people straight. I told them how it is. I said, listen, your status, your fame, your money doesn't impress me. How talented you are and how well you can sing on stage doesn't impress me. How you treat other people is the reflection of your true character. Are you a person of integrity? Are you a man or a woman of honor who stays true to your word, where your word is your bond? You guys remember the day when, a handshake was your word, it was your bond. And now you got to get everything in writing and notarized by an attorney. And that still might not save you. So I look for what attracts me to people now is not their talent, because there's plenty of talent out there. There's plenty of people who can do great things to impress other people. But I'm looking for people that have character. I'm looking for people that have integrity and that are in it for the long haul. I mean, I'm about building lifelong relationships. And I always like to say it's hard to have a lifelong relationship with someone else until you get past each other's worsts. And that goes for marriage. It goes for any type of relationship that you want longevity in. And too many people think the grass is greener on the other side because they're just not willing to confront their own character flaws. So for me, building my character, progressively choosing to be a better person every day, a better man, a better husband to my wife, a better father to my 3 kids, is all about what this progressive journey of life is leading us toward.
Yeah, what I found, Caleb, is the grass is greener on the other side, but it's artificial turf.
There you go. I like that. I'm going to use that one.
Yeah, that's a good one. I tell you, Bill, I like that one. It's really amazing because, when you look at people with the LLAR system, I've talked about this a lot, but if you look at people if you try to love that individual, you try to like that individual, you try to appreciate that individual, and you try to respect that individual, even though their views or their outlook on life may be different than yours, but appreciate them. We'll be right back. And welcome back to the show, ladies and gentlemen. Your Future is Now is proudly brought to you today by the good guys at the 6minutewebinar.com. That's SIXminutewebinar.com. We got a workshop coming up tomorrow on Saturday. So just go to 6minutewebinar.com and check it out, sign up, and come and see us. And, you know, Mr. Bill, I was telling you and Caleb during the break that I forgot for Caleb to give his website and his email address. Oh my goodness. Well, I hope you guys, both you guys, will forgive me. Caleb, if you would, sir, would you be kind enough to share your website and your email address with the folks out there, please?
My pleasure, Jim. Thank you for that. You can find me at www.calebkiddcoy.com, Kidd with 2 D's. And you can email me at contact@calebkiddcoy.com.
He spells that CALEBKIDDCOY.com. And be sure and check out Caleb. And as you can see by him being on the show today, my goodness, he's got a wealth of information. He can help a lot of people. And Mr. Bill, I tell you right now, I am so grateful that we have a great guest like Caleb on the show today. Aren't you, sir?
Yeah. I want to get back to Caleb. What are some things that you really want to make sure you discuss on the show today, Caleb? We can certainly ask a lot of questions, but I want to make sure you get the points across that you think are most important to our audience.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Absolutely. Thank you for that, Bill. Well, what I'm doing today after, my long journey in those years of life coaching in the entertainment industry, and nothing ever happens, in my opinion, by coincidence. I think there's providence to the order of our lives if we're constantly remaining humble, which to me is remaining teachable, that those doors of opportunity will open up for us, especially if our heart and our motives and our intentions are in the right place. And, 2006, I found myself in an unexpected meeting with Katy Perry's parents. And Katie's one of the biggest female, well-known artists in the world today. And so I ended up doing some conferences with them, and they introduced me to some artists that I very much admired growing up. And I didn't mention that my aspiration was to be a rock and roll star as a teenager before I, nearly lost my life to meth. And so, the way that things came around for me is I got to speak into the lives of, some of the artists that I admired growing up. Especially in the hard rock and heavy metal genre. But that vision in our heart that starts to get so big. And, I thought that maybe life coaching in the entertainment industry was I'd found my ultimate purpose in place, but it was just a progression in that journey. And so, today what I'm doing, because, the vision was just so much bigger, is allowing me to create so much more impact and empowerment. And essentially what I do today, gentlemen, is I help people protect their assets, automate their income using compounding interest, grow their retirement, and equip them with the tools to become epic legacy heroes, even in the midst of an uncertain world and a volatile economy. And so, that's huge. We look at things like artificial intelligence and quantum computers, which are, we use them each and every day. We don't realize it a lot of the time, but they are transforming our world at a very rapid pace, as is digital currency. And so one of the things that I've looked for and prayed for is opportunities for my clients where they don't put their money at risk, or it can grow not just a little bit, but at a pretty significant rate, at a fixed return, in a safe FDIC insured environment. And so I feel so grateful, that I can help people do what they didn't realize was possible on their own. And again, that goes back to just awareness, education, proper training on what is possible. Because, we live in this world where people just are constantly taken advantage of, especially with their finances, whether it's by the banks who are giving them a, measly 1% or less return on a savings account, or people in the finance industry, or just folks that want to take advantage and use them for their money because maybe they don't understand. So what we're doing is we're taking the fear and the intimidation out of estate planning, and we're putting the keys into the hand of the client so that they're at the steering wheel, and that they can feel comfortable knowing that they're working with a team of people who have their business interests in mind. Because literally, you know, when you care more about people than you do about money, it's going to show. You know, eventually your character is going to be, you know, discovered and revealed by people. And we just need more people in our world that are about serving and empowering and giving back. And so that's definitely my heart.
Definitely, because that's one thing you can't hide, and that's who you really are. You can camouflage it for a while, but sooner or later, every tiger shows their stripes. And I like what your philosophy there. It's your money. You be in charge of it. And just like this is your life, you should take charge of your life and, you know, seek and find ways to serve others, because that's when you really begin to start living. And I tell you, Bill, it's just a wonderful privilege to be able to answer your calling in life, isn't it, sir?
It certainly is. It certainly is. And there's a huge differentiation in the way people speak and act, depending upon whether they're living their purpose or trying to survive. So let's talk a little bit, Caleb, about the legacy that you're mentioning, and about people showing people how to create a legacy. Tell us a little more about that.
Absolutely. Well, you know, I mentioned that legacy for me means so much more, you know, than just our money and our possessions, because whether we like it or not, or whether we're willing to accept the fact or not, you know, one day our legacy is going to be passed down to our family. And how do we want to be remembered by others? Do we want to be remembered as somebody who is a procrastinator and an irresponsible burden who didn't take the steps to do anything? And now we've left our children and our grandchildren to have to go through the horrific process of probating the estate, potentially losing 40% of what we work so hard for to attorneys and taxes and the entire legal system? Or are we being proactive? Are we taking the steps to protect that, to make it easier for our kids and our grandkids to, you know, inherit that legacy and pass it on? And for me, you know, I constantly think about how I'm going to be remembered by the people around me, and what's going to be spoken about me when I'm gone. And doing what I do, I have such an acute awareness of waking up every single day with epic gratitude, thanking the Creator for the gift of life, because every single day is an opportunity and a gift, and none of us are guaranteed tomorrow. And, you know, I think especially as Americans, it's so easy to have maybe a sense of entitlement, or, you know, a sense that, you know, we've got it so good, and, you know, we'll just get to it tomorrow. I'll do it when I get around to it. And then you can imagine the horror stories that I have of, you know, the calls that I get because, you know, people didn't do what they needed to do. Something unexpected happened, you know, whether it was, you know, tragic death or an illness that just put them in a position where it made it very difficult to do what they could have easily done if they were willing to take the steps to do that. So part of what I'm all about is just equipping people with the courage and boldness to say, hey, you can do this. You can empower yourself, and you should do this, because, you know, legacy can be created as generation, as something that is ongoing from generation to generation. And so I constantly think about how I'm going to be remembered, what people are going to say about me. And especially in this digital age, right? We are leaving a digital footprint. Every, you know, Facebook video, LinkedIn, Instagram, Clubhouse audio I go on and do, right, is there's a digital imprint that's going to be left behind of who I was and what was important to me and what mattered to me. And I want my children to understand those values and the ethics and the morals and the things that I lived by, and empower them to have the opportunity to realize how important it is to be an independent thinker, to think for yourself and just not go by what the crowds are saying, and not just listen to what mainstream propaganda is pushing to you, but to be a person who researches and does due diligence to find out the facts and the truth for yourself. I'm just such a huge advocate of that. and being versed in, taking the time and the accessibility that we have to information today and using that to empower ourselves.
And
go ahead, Bill.
Go ahead. No, I was going to ask.
Go ahead.
When's a good time for someone to start on this?
Yesterday.
I was just gonna say very quickly that as you were talking, Caleb, the thing that really came to my mind is not only is your name and your legacy, but think about the impact that you're going to leave with your kids, grandkids, or even the people you come in contact with, to give them inspiration to say, hey, I can do this. I can come out of this shell that I'm in, and no one's going to have their thumb on top of my head to hold me back. And that's just one thing that popped in my mind, and I wanted to share that with you and also the audience, because it's very important to understand that everything that we do, it has consequences. It really does.
Yes.
As Bill talks a lot about that, and I really appreciate that, because it's so true, because you either leave a positive impact on someone or a negative impact. And when you're using the love and the energy of the universe, it just vibrates. It just goes and grows, because it just gets electrifying. And that's what makes life really exciting to live,
Yeah, well, that's the law of cause and effect. Every cause has an effect, and every effect has a cause. And, you talk about consequences. And when you sit down to eat at the table of consequences, Jim, the main course is always crow.
Yeah, I tell you, that's so true, because it's amazing how if you just walk around and you're going into a store, you see another person come out and you smile and nod. They will normally smile and nod too, because that's that good vibration that you want to get going and surround yourself with, because it's a win-win situation. Ladies and gentlemen, we're about ready for another commercial break. We'll be back with Caleb for the last segment, and we hope you're enjoying the show. Be sure and tell others about the show and share it with others, and follow us on Spotify and all these other places. We'll be right back. And welcome back to the show, ladies and gentlemen. Your Future is Now is proudly brought to you by the good guys at the 6minutewebinar.com. That's SIX, 6minutewebinar.com. And tomorrow we're going to have a boot camp, a 3-hour boot camp, where you can fill out your very own 6-minute webinar, and you can experience what I call the 6-minute webinar experience. Just go to 6minutewebinar.com and check us out, and be sure, and if you know someone that could use the 6-minute webinar to get clarity in their business and how to talk to their ideal client, the 6-minute webinar, ladies and gentlemen, it is the only vehicle and the only tool that you need. Trust me on that. And today our guest is Caleb Kidd Coy. His website is www.CalebKiddCoy.com. And Caleb, if you give your email address, I'll write that down. How to get in touch with you.
You bet. My email is contact@CalebKiddCoy.com.
Thank you, sir. And Mr. Bill, I tell you, Caleb's really sharing some great information with us today, isn't he, sir?
Yeah, it's very, very valuable information, and where he's coming from regarding the way he works, the energy he uses, and what his focus is very important thing for everybody to pay attention to, because that will make the world a better place, won't it, Caleb?
It absolutely will. And, we've all heard it said, we are the sum of the 5 people we spend the most time around, and, who we surround ourselves with, and the relationships we attach ourselves to are going to dictate a lot about our attitude, our perception, as well as, the actions that we are taking in our lives, whether, negative or detrimental. And we talked about causality earlier, cause and effect. Some people know it as karma. Some people call it the law of sowing and reaping, but it is a principle of natural law that there is a corresponding reaction to every action that we take. And I love what Napoleon Hill says with, every adversity, there's an equivalent opportunity. And so I'm just a guy who's taken extraordinary adverse situations in my life and found the opportunity in it and chose to rise above it. And one of the greatest principles that I have is that it's just so critically important that we have mentors and coaches in our lives, and that self-investing is one of the most important investments you could ever possibly make. And a couple years ago, I knew that as a pioneer, as a forerunner, as a visionary, that there were others that had gone ahead of me, that had paved the way, that were doing things in business and had success in areas that I was looking for. And so I knew I needed those tools and those keys. And just under 2 years ago, I hired Pete Vargas, who's the founder of Advance Your Reach, and his business coach partner, Pat Quinn, who's just an extraordinary speaking coach. And Pete's known as the stage whisperer, and he's worked with a lot of big names: Tony Robbins, Dean Graziosi. He just spoke on Grant Cardone's stage at 10X GrowthCon in Miami. And so I hired Pete and his team, and just decided to put myself to work and show up and transform my business and my life over the past year and a half. And in May of last year, in May of 2020, I had my first 6-figure plus sale. And now I've had multiple 6-figure months over that time frame. And then in March of this year, Pete and Advance Your Reach actually awarded me the Accelerator of the Year award. And so I'm just, again, a testament that, you can be just an average, ordinary person. I didn't go to college for finance. I didn't go to business school, but I put myself to work to study and educate. And more than that, I just showed up to encourage and to empower the people around me. I think so much of that award was not as much attributed to my massive biz success and the way that I transformed my life around sales and marketing. My relationship with Sam, a year and a half ago, was nothing more than flirtatious. And in December of last year, I got engaged to Sam, to sales and marketing. And then, shortly after that, I got married. And so sales and marketing is a huge part of my life, but it comes from a heart of service. And it was the way that I had perceived it. And I had seen so many sleazy salesmen and people going about it for their own personal motives and basically just to get into the pocketbook of their client, where I chose a different path. And I had been building relationships with people for years. And so now I have a number of clients who have become some of my greatest advocates and ambassadors because of that relationship, because of the trust that was established, because of the rapport, and because they know that I truly care about them. And it's just such a distinguishing factor when you're in business to help serve people, and you're constantly bringing value, and you're constantly going above and beyond the call of duty and doing more than what you're paid to do. It's going to show. It's going to separate and distinguish you from the competition. And ultimately, I don't see myself as someone who has competition with anybody, because I'm too busy serving and creating and empowering others to compete with anybody. And I'm unique in my own right. And if we can lean on our uniqueness, especially in this day and age, there's so much noise. Everybody is vying for your attention on social media. Everybody's saying, look at my post, watch my video, look what I'm doing on TikTok. So if you can just show up and be powerfully authentic, transparent, and sincere, and be a person of empathy and compassion, right away, that's going to distinguish you and separate you. And people are going to be drawn to that. And so I just encourage folks today to go out and find your tribe and build your community. We have a company that we started this year called the Nexus Business Alliance, myself and 3 associates. And we built it around Ohana. And Ohana is the Hawaiian term for family. If you've ever seen Lilo and Stitch, right? Ohana means family. And so we built a business-centered hub and community where people are seen and heard, they're valued, and they're growing together with people of like mind around them. And that is just so transformative. It's so different than just, okay, buy my business course, or, hire me and I'll show you how to make millions in 12 weeks and then you'll never hear from me again. No, we've seen the value in building a community, surrounding yourself with a tribe of people that advocate for you and you advocate for them. And just the synergy and the collaboration is so powerful.
It really is. And, the thing that I really like about what you're saying is that you're recognizing the person, because when people look at you, they look at you for one reason, and that is, what can you do for me? Can you help me in my
Yes.
hour of need? And Bill, I tell you, that is just one of the most humbling things that can happen to you when you're in a position to where someone is looking at you and they're thinking, can you help me? I'm looking
Mhm.
for help. This is why I'm looking for you. And that is a tremendous honor in it, Bill.
Well, it isn't just a tremendous honor, it's the actual state of being for everybody. They're looking for help of some sort.
Yes.
In fact, from a sales standpoint, I used to be in sales and avoid it like the plague now, but everybody's a yes. Everybody's there to do something,
Hmm.
and it takes the right connection in order to engage them. Without that, it's just another moment in time where there's been some dialogue, but that's about it. Isn't that right, Caleb?
That's absolutely right. If you're not building that rapport, we've heard it said, it's so cliche, but people do, they do business with people they know, like, and trust. And that reputation is very difficult to create, but oh so easy to lose. Just like momentum, right? It can be difficult to create, but you can lose it very quickly. And so it goes back to being a person of character. Who are you really deep down inside? Who
Hmm.
who are you when you're not on social media? How do you treat others? How are you treating your wife and kids? And yes, we're all imperfect human beings, and we're all flawed, and we all make mistakes. But are we constantly trying to improve who we are? Are we choosing
Hmm.
each day to become better than we were yesterday? And so I just encourage folks, I've got a wonderful free presentation on the hero's legacy process and how you can be empowered to be a better hero at calebkiddcoy.com/legacy. And again, that's just a tool that people can use to start equipping themselves and get empowered with,
Hmm.
what is available out there. What steps can I take today? How can I use the power of a revocable living trust today,
Hmm.
right where I'm at? And whether that's as a parent or an entrepreneur or a small business owner, it doesn't matter. These tools are accessible and they are equipable, for the people that are ready to implement and put them into place.
It's a great starting place, is what you're saying. You're right.
Absolutely.
Bill, I tell you, it's really amazing how, when we get ready to make a change, we've got to make a commitment to ourselves and say, okay, I'm going to be open-minded. I'm going to stop doing what I've been doing, and I'm going to go in a new direction. And for me, that's the starting point of all achievement. That's the way I look at it, because many times in my life, I've done things that, were distracting. They were negative, not in a bad way, but just, anything that eats up your time and stops you from, living the life, your life's purpose. It's negative, folks. It really is, because that's the way I look at it, Bill. You may look at it a little different. How do you feel about that?
Well, I agree with what you said. The challenge is people don't have enough awareness.
Hmm.
But there's some things that I found to be true, and the probably one of the greatest things is whenever there's confusion, whenever you're confused, you just simply have an absence of commitment.
Hmm.
Yeah,
It's guaranteed.
Mm.
With commitment, there's no confusion, Jim.
that's great.
Yes, I like that. I like the way you said that, Bill, because it just says that, I'm sick and tired of you being sick and tired, and that's a great way to be honest with yourself, be open minded, and then that's when you're able to see the light when it starts to come your way. And ladies and gentlemen, we got about less than 30 seconds left in the show today, about 15 actually. We want to thank you for tuning in today, and be sure and visit Caleb at calebkiddcoy.com, and be sure and share the shows with others. It'll be uploaded on our YouTube channel, Your Future Is Now, later on today. And thank you so much. We'll see you next time.